Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining me on the Pink Cloud Frequency. I am your host, Brianna Wynn. And today we're going to talk about understanding identity shifts in sobriety. Who are you without alcohol? So, this can feel overwhelming, especially if you've recently made the decision to quit or you're still exploring the idea of an alcohol free lifestyle. But it's so important to talk about because quitting alcohol requires an identity shift. The being of who you are is no longer going to be the same as it once was. The core of who you are, yes, but your identity is going to change. So let's start out by acknowledging the question many people don't like to ask out loud, but they're actually thinking. And that is, if I'm not a drinker anymore, who am I? And not having that answer can feel uncomfortable. Maybe you feel untethered because alcohol made you feel attached to something. And no matter what you went through, alcohol was always available, whether good, bad, or indifferent. It's just this sort of quiet acquaintance you can call on. And now that attachment's no longer there. Or maybe you feel in between because is this really your new identity? Are you a non-drinker? Are you still a drinker? Is this forever? Or is it just this month? And you can sort of quickly feel defeated if you try to think so far ahead, or you let that uncertainty get to you. So now you go back and forth and you feel this pressure sort of building within you. And maybe now you feel unsure in social spaces now that you quit. You see other people drinking, they look like they're having a good time, maybe more fun than you, and now you're questioning your decision because you still don't know how you feel. You're still in that process. You don't want to be the only person who's not drinking. You feel good when you're home, but now you feel weird when you're out. And this is so common, right? So many women feel uncomfortable with this because they feel that fear of missing out. They're at the table, right, with everyone else, but they feel out of place because now they're having to be someone different than who they were used to being. And when you're so used to that old familiar identity, being a non-drinker, now it feels weird. It feels detached, maybe boring sometimes, definitely uncertain. And I mean, isn't that one of the reasons that you started drinking in the first place? You were the fun one, the person who could go anywhere, do anything, always up for a good time. Or maybe you were the social one, the person who could talk to strangers or anyone from any group. You're having drinks with people and your conversations, they feel so dialed in, right? Even though you wake up the next day and you have no recollection of what that conversation was about. Or maybe you were the one who can relax with alcohol. You sit down with a glass of wine, you watch a show or a movie, maybe you read a book, but relaxing with alcohol becomes part of who you were or who you are. And wine was your me time. So you needed that glass of wine to unwind or to take the edge off, which is something moms always say. You were the one who can escape. Wine helps you shut your brain down. Drinking alcohol is woven into everything, right? Friend groups, everything revolves around drinking. You don't see someone in a while, hey, let's grab a drink. You're dating, and what's the first date usually? Go out for a drink. Long day at work, let's get drinks after. How about your stories? About yourself, about other people, about the world that we're living in. It's who you are. It's what everyone does. So it's what you do too. Or your coping styles, right? You see alcohol as the solution for everything. You had a long day, you turn to alcohol. You had, you're celebrating something or there's a holiday, you turn to alcohol. You are grappling with some heavy, intense emotions and you turn to alcohol. How about when you're sick, you're physically sick, maybe you have a cold and the only thing that feels good is a warm alcoholic beverage. And drinking is also woven into our self-perceptions. So how you see yourself with alcohol is different from how you see yourself without it. So maybe you don't feel comfortable dating or getting to know a person without alcohol, right? I see this all the time. You see yourself different, and then, you have this idea that other people see you different too. It's like alcohol gives you that confidence. Women go out and it's like, I heard this recently too, not feeling drunk enough to go dance. And so it's so tied into who we are. It's embedded in what we do. It's intertwined with our identities. And if that's the case, then what happens when you leave alcohol behind? The identity tied to it feels like it's left behind too. And this feels very strange because your new identity hasn't caught up yet. So now you're experiencing this in-between phase, this identity gap, which is basically the space between who you were when alcohol was part of your life and who you haven't yet become without it. It's a transition period, but it feels uncomfortable for you because you lose those social scripts. You lose that confidence. You lose that predictability. You lose those coping mechanisms, or that coping mechanism, I should say. And your brain is just constantly looking for what's familiar and reaching for that old identity. So now that gap, it just feels so huge and it can feel so overwhelming. And this isn't just with alcohol, right? Any area of our life where we want to see change, we're going to experience this gap. We are going to need our identities to catch up with who we're becoming. The goals that we set for ourselves, in order to reach those, that requires an identity shift. So let's say you're on a weight loss journey, right? Maybe you want to lose 20 pounds. That's common. In order to do that, though, you have to adopt the identity of the person who's 20 pounds lighter before you can make those other shifts that support the new 20-pound lighter you. You can't refer to yourself as fat because what would an overweight person do? Snack late at night, eat processed foods, drink soda with every meal. A skinny person isn't going to do those things. And I say this respectfully, just so you understand the analogy. I'm constantly trying to lose weight, working out, all those things. So I'm saying this so that you understand how identity works. If you're calling yourself fat, but trying to lose 20 pounds, it's never going to work. You're not going to lose that weight because you're constantly reverting back to your old identity. How about maybe you are someone who wants to become more organized? You want your workspace to be organized, your house to be clean, your bed to be made every morning, your keys to be accessible, your mail and your bills all in one place instead of scattered around. Do you think you're going to become an organized person who practices ordered habits if you're always saying to yourself, I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached to my body? Or if you're always saying to yourself, I'm such a mess, I'm so disorganized. No. You have to learn to separate your patterns from your identity. And it's the exact same process with quitting alcohol. You have to separate those associations with drinking from who you are. And who you were as a drinker, I'm not saying it's fake. It wasn't. It was just a version of yourself that adapted to the drink, right? To the people around you, to the places around you, the things that you did. And who you're becoming now, it's not diminished. It's not finished yet. You're in the process of recalibrating your system, recalibrating your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns, your habits. So maybe you still are a social butterfly. Maybe you still do love to meet up with friends and frequent restaurants. Now you're just figuring out how to do that without alcohol. So your new lifestyle, it doesn't erase your identity, it reveals it. Okay? I'm going to say that again. Your new lifestyle, your new alcohol-free lifestyle doesn't erase your identity, it reveals your identity. It shows you who you truly are, what you actually enjoy, who you want to be, what moves you, what little things make you smile. How do you want to spend your day? Who do you want to spend your day with? The space that alcohol occupied is now vacant for you to create that. And I'm not saying you'll be an entirely new person. No, you're still you. But now you have that time and space back to fully explore and expand on who that truly is and what that actually looks like every single day. Your new identity is built through repetition, right? I am healthy. So every single day, I drink my protein shake. I take my vitamins and supplements. I walk at least 10,000 steps a day. It's a very cold winter here in Massachusetts, so there's definitely been some snowy days and I don't hit that mark, but I exercise on my little mini stair stepper. But all of those habits I do on repeat. How about routines for your children, right? Those can certainly get lost when you drink alcohol. Maybe reading your child a book at night every single night is now what you do repeatedly. You don't miss a night. You don't regret that you missed a night because you fell asleep instead. Or what about pausing before responding to your teenager? Maybe they said or did something that was inappropriate. Do you just snap back at them? Or do you pause, think about it, and then have a talk about it? It's all of those little behaviors that we do repeatedly, how we respond, how we think, that helps shape who we are. It's tea after dinner. It's, showering before bed and Orange Theory maybe every Wednesday and Friday at 5 a.m. It's pausing before responding. And what do all of those repeated behaviors and patterns build? They build self-trust. So now we trust ourselves to make good decisions, to do what serves us and the people that we love. We now trust our bodies. If we feel depleted, we say no to plans without the need to over-explain. We trust ourselves to rely on ourselves to problem solve. We don't ignore our problems by drinking a glass of wine because guess what? They don't go anywhere. We stay present in difficult times. We keep our promises to ourselves, to our spouse, our children, our friends, our parents. So you don't need a label. You don't need to declare yourself alcohol-free or sober, and you don't have to make any big announcements, right? You don't have to rush to figure it out. You just need to stay present long enough for what becomes familiar to form. I'm someone who honors my clarity. I'm someone who keeps promises to myself. I'm becoming someone I trust. You have to give yourself time and grace for the process to unfold. Because your brain wants to latch onto your old identity, even though it may not have been serving you. Our brains are designed to protect us. So, they hold on tightly to what's familiar. And now you're having to basically rewire your brain to create a new baseline of what's familiar and what's comfortable. So the urge that you might feel to feel like that person again, that drinker, or you feel unsure about the person you're becoming, that's normal. That's part of the process. But during the process, we have to be conscious of the language we use when we're speaking to ourselves. Because I am, right? Saying I am, fill in the blank, that carries a lot of weight. A lot of weight. Saying my, when you describe your emotions, that carries a lot of weight. So let's say, for instance, you say, I am depressed, or you refer to depression with ownership, right? It's my depression. What happens if you can't separate yourself from that? It becomes your identity. So now what habits do you practice? What do you do? What do you say repeatedly? You do and say things that coincide with you feeling depressed. Maybe you sleep all day, or you lay down in bed all day. You don't exercise. You don't laugh when something's funny. You don't find joy in the things that interest you. You don't even do the things that interest you. So when you can't separate your identity from your emotions, those emotions start to become more intense. And those habits become more regular. And when you do that for a duration, guess what? It becomes who you are. Do you know how long it takes to form a new habit? If you've read that book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, I'm pretty sure he says 66 days on average, right? On average. But a study actually shows it can take anywhere from 18 days to 253 days. 253 days for a new behavior to become automatic. So wherever you fall on that spectrum, that's going to vary depending on your circumstances. So you have to give yourself time, okay? Don't think because you didn't build a new habit in 2 weeks or even 2 months after you quit alcohol that you're never going to be able to quit for good. So then you just go back to it. No, you have to keep going. You have to stop interfering with that identity formation process with negative self-talk. Otherwise, those limitations you place upon yourself through your words, those will eventually become permanent. Because we are what we repeatedly do. So you have to say to yourself, I am not someone who does that anymore. You have to separate your new self from your old self. Because if you still view yourself as that old version, if you're still attached to your identity as a drinker, then what is the next logical step for your brain? To look for cues in your environment that make you want to go and drink. So in order to break a habit, you must see yourself as the person who no longer does it. So to give you a personal example, when I was younger, I smoked cigarettes. Disgusting, I know. I'd smoked cigarettes for years, and then eventually I started to only smoke when I was drinking. And one night I remember, this was at least 12 or 13 years ago. My son was born, so I know it was within 15 years, but he was a baby. And I was outside. Well, I was in my house, but like outside my window, okay, in my kitchen. And a pack of Parliament Lights I had to pull out of the freezer because I only smoked when I drank and I didn't drink often then. So I would put cigarettes in the freezer, for when I drank so that I had something to smoke. But when I smoked that cigarette that night, it was freezing cold, I remember. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, is this who I am? a woman, a mother who thaws out a pack of fucking cigarettes and hangs halfway outside her window just to smoke it. It's like, no, that's not who I am. And from that day forward, I never again smoked a cigarette. And that's not the only time I've had a similar breakthrough. I've done that with something else before as well. And I'm not going to say it's always that easy because, again, I wasn't a daily smoker at that time. But the reality is I probably could have quit altogether, but I was still holding on to that smoker's identity, which is why I smoked when I drank. I like to hold something in my hand or listen to music, vibing out with the window down, smoking a cigarette. It's like all of those little behaviors, right? Smoking a cigarette when I did, like after I ate. So it's like all of that's tied to that identity. But it was in that one moment when I realized, hey, I'm not that person. And then guess what? That behavior stopped. And that's what happened when I quit alcohol as well. It wasn't just one moment. With alcohol, it was a collection of moments where I kept asking myself, is this who I am? Someone who unwinds by sitting on the couch, drinking a glass of wine, wishing for more instead of actually doing more? Am I a mother who isn't always available for rides when my son calls because I already opened a bottle of wine? Or am I a woman who wakes up with hangovers, wishing away my day because I feel physically ill? No. And enough of those questions and moments occurred. They built up, and the idea of drinking for me just started to feel less and less appealing. I kept doing it, but I knew I was slowly detaching from that being who I was. And it was also a collection of watching other people and how they behaved as well. That had an effect on me too. I actually remember a couple years ago, we had a hockey tournament for my son, and it was down in Nashville. And one of the parents actually didn't show up for one of the day's games, right? Because that parent was hungover. Now, the entire reason we are on this trip, the entire reason was the tournament. The entire reason is our children in the games that they are playing, right? Maybe 3 days in total. So to miss even one of those days or one of those games because you drank alcohol or because you were ill from drinking alcohol, I mean, that just sucks. And I remember, like, I this is not judgment, okay? This is not at all judgment. This is compassion. And I felt for that person in that moment. And when I think about it today, I still feel bad. Because we're not our best when we are consuming a toxic substance, period. It doesn't matter if it's 7 days a week, a few times a month, right? We can sit there and lie to ourselves and say, oh, I'm only drinking on special occasions, but every fucking other day is a special occasion. What makes an occasion special? Is it the alcohol? No. So why do we tell ourselves that? Alcohol is draining us, right? It's draining us. But in order to make that shift, to see that, to remove that alcohol, we have to be okay with the uncertainty. The who am I is a process that's constantly unfolding and repeating because that's just part of life. Who you are today isn't who you were 10 years ago, and it's not going to be who you are 10 years from now. Our identities evolved. We're always growing and changing, and that's the cycle of life. Another example, I'm a hockey mom. I think I've made that clear. That's part of my identity. My son's been playing hockey for, 8 or 9 years at this point. I go to hockey games every single week. My son plays other sports, right? Do I show up to his golf matches? Rarely, maybe twice. Why? Because my identity is tethered to being a hockey mom, not a golf mom. My social circles, other hockey moms. It's not gymnast moms or basketball moms or football moms, right? I can laugh at memes that they send me because I can relate to it because I'm a hockey mom. But if I showed that same hockey meme to a tennis mom, it's like, is she going to laugh? Probably not, because she can't relate to it. It's like, will I be a hockey mom forever? Nope. And I know that. What's it called when your children go away to college? Empty nest syndrome. That's not just grief or sadness or loneliness because you're apart from your son or daughter. It's an identity issue. We're constantly changing and growing as human beings, and the underscoring of all of those changes is how we identify with ourselves before, during, and after. Who we are, who we were, who we're becoming. So, to wrap all of this up for you, you can miss parts of who you were and still move forward, right? You can grieve your identity as a drinker without regretting your choice to become a non-drinker. Letting go of an identity is emotional work. It's not a flaw. It's part of the process. Identity loss is just temporary. Your new self, it forms quietly. It's behind closed doors that you do that work. And then when you go out in public, everyone's like, oh shit, you're a whole new person. That's everything you did quietly without telling everyone else, right? It's doing that emotional work. So you don't have to go back to drinking alcohol just to feel whole again. You have permission to grow and to change. Life is all about growth and improvement. The essence of who you are is the same, but you should be smarter and wiser, right? You've experienced more. You're expanding your intellect, your social circles, your interest. Your identity is constantly forming and reforming. And throughout this entire process, watch what you say. Watch how you speak to yourself and how you're nourishing your mind and your body. You can't put in garbage and then expect flowers. So you're not going backward, you're integrating. You're not lost because, you can't definitively answer that question of who am I without alcohol. It's like you're in transition. You're figuring this out, and give yourself grace. So for your reflection today, I encourage you, ask yourself, who are you becoming when you choose yourself in those small, quiet moments? And what can you do to repeatedly support that new identity? So thank you for joining me today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are listening. I love you guys. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys soon.